You've guessed it, it's about undergarments. I'm packing for a trip here this coming weekend in some cold waters, and I figured it would be a good opportunity to talk to you about the strategy I take when it comes to undergarments underneath our dry suit. Hi and welcome to another episode of UTD Scuba Diving TV. Now, no one likes to be cold underwater, no one likes to be cold in general, I guess, but going about it sometimes lets people go into a compromise where they accept being cold because of movement restrictions or other things that makes them go down the path of being cold. A good example is thick gloves. You got people diving thin gloves because they feel thick gloves hinders their feeling underwater. Well, yeah, you might think that is logical, but in reality, when your fingers get cold, they get numb. Now, I'd rather have clumsy fingers that I can feel than numb fingers that is completely useless to me. And that kind of relates to the whole strategy when it comes to keeping yourself warm underwater. It's super important. I mean, from a decompression standpoint, it's super important. From a mental capacity, it's super important. It's proven time and time again in different studies that as soon as you go even mildly hypothermic, you lose, mental ability, you lose dexterity, you lose motor skills. It's a lot of things, and we can see it when we got with students in the water. As soon as they get a little bit cold, they lose focus, and when you lose the focus, you lose the enjoyment. So keeping warm is absolutely paramount. So let's jump right in and let's start with the base. The base starts with a base layer. It's important to get some kind of a good base layer on you as the first layer, because it adds to a little bit of insulation. But the most important property of a base layer is the wicking capabilities. When we get dressed, we're getting dressed in relatively warm air. Usually the air is warmer than the water we're going to dive in. Plus, the air is not so good of a conductor, so when we get dressed, even though the temperature of the water is the same as the temperature of the air, we get warm. Getting our stuff together, working on the boat, all that sort of stuff. So having a wicking base layer is super important to keep that sweat away from your body. Because if you get that sweat on your body, that sweat is going to act as a radiator. Your skin is a radiator per definition. If you start sweating, that sweat evaporating from your skin is cooling you down. That's the whole idea behind sweating. So if we want to keep our heat, we want to get that sweat away from our skin, and that's what a wicking base layer does. So wicking base layer, super important. Nice and tight fitting all the way over your body. Then, when we got to the extremities, we need to talk about socks and gloves. Now, your feet and your hands are the first to get cold, because those things are the first that your body shuts off from. Your extremities are the first that get isolated from the warm blood, because the body wants to keep all the warm blood in the core. Now, if you keep your core warm, you keep your extremities warmer for longer. So it doesn't just help by getting a thin undergarment and thick gloves and thick socks and hope that works. It's a balance. So having said that, having some good socks as a solution is a good thing. Normal, wool ski socks usually don't do the job. Our ski boots are much more tight fitting, or our winter hiking shoes are much more tight fitting. So we have a lot more air pockets that we want to fill out with something fluffy like this, or a fleece sock or something like that. Now, having a nice thick woolen sock as a liner is perfect, but then for all the small gaps in your feet, around your ankles, you need something that fills out those gaps a little bit. But a bit more about the gaps and air movement in the suit later. Get a sock that has like a protective bottom, because sometimes when they're completely fleece or completely like flimsy material, they can get wet, and wet's not good. So in this case, these have like a water repelling sole. So when you start getting out or in your dry suit, if you step in something moist, it doesn't go to your feet. So that's important. Now when we talk about gloves, You can either go a fancy way like this, like heated gloves. They're super nice. I mean, they're a good glove, you know, from a glove's point of view. But then when you feel like, ooh, I can use a bit of extra comfort, you turn on that battery and ooh, you get all nice and cozy, warm hands. So that's super important. And obviously, the more demanding your diving gets, the more you need to use your fingers for camera use or stage bottle or gas switching or you know what. Dexterity in your fingers is super important. Some people, like I said, choose the compromise, where they say if I wear too thick a glove or too thick inner gloves, I can't move my fingers. Well, that can be dealt with training. You can train your fingers to move in a different way, so you can get the job done. However, if you have thin gloves, either thin neoprene gloves or just thin under gloves, your finger's gonna get stiff and numb, and you can't train numb fingers. Numb is numb. You cannot feel anything, you cannot do anything. So it's better to get a bit more clumsy and get used to that than to just, you know, get cold. If you don't have heated gloves, I like these. I think they're Swedish brand in Luva. I got them once at a dive show, and they're crazy warm. They're kind of like a felt woolen thing. I don't know if it's alpaca or some kind of sheep or some kind of animal that makes wool, but they're, all I know is they're nice and warm, and they're durable, and they don't really fluff as much. Use them in combination with a thin liner. In this case, this is a merino wool liner. Together with these are super nice and warm. In really cold dives, I might even do this liner underneath my heated gloves for extra insulation. Now back to the feet. A little trick I've done myself to my drysuit boots is I've taken the insole out, this black neoprene insole, and I've gone to the local shoe store here, and I bought these, I don't know, old person's felt thermo inlay, and I just took a piece of double-sided tape and I stuck these to my insole. Now this little heat reflective on the bottom keeps the cold out, and your feet are on this felt. I tell you, it makes a difference. So that's a nice little tip there. Go out and get one of these, you know, inlays, and just put them there. So when we got to the base layer, then we need to address what kind of top, what kind of insulating suit we want. Now you can go fleece, you can go like these downy things. Personally, I prefer the Thinsulate based undergarments, like you can see behind me. These are Santi BZ200 and BZ400. These are my togo suits. I like them because A, they're warm, and B, they're durable. They're strong like you won't believe. This suit is, I think, 10 years old, and it's getting some use, you know, and it's still going strong. I mean, it's made to last. So what I like about the Thinsulate material is that when you look inside this, it's tiny layers of this Thinsulate material stacked up onto each other. That creates a very high insulating capacity or capability without too much bulk, because even the 400 grams suit, it's still reasonably thin, and the way, especially the way the manufacturers nowadays think about their garments, and Santi is a perfect example of this, is like in the areas where you compress the fabric, like in your armpit here, it's thinner. In the same way, like underneath their arm, it's nice and fluffy inside, but it's stretchable. And the same thing here, inside your knees, you know, on the inside of your knees, it's nice and compact. And the last part of your ankles, where your socks go over, it's also not very thick. So even though it's a thick suit, and you can feel that you're wearing something substantial underneath your dry suit, it's not hindering in you in such a way. If you look at this suit, let's see if the wind actually doesn't play with me here, but if you can see the way this leg is sewn, it's almost like a motorcycle suit. Like the knee wants to bend. You can see there's more fabric than you need, because underwater you're not with straight legs, you're like with bent legs. So if this fabric here is too tight, like it would be on a normal pants, as soon as you bend your knee, it'll tighten up around your knee and you get cold knees. No one likes cold knees. So when you look at these suits, they're actually well thought out and have a bit of extra padding here on the thigh and on the knee to keep those areas warm. They have a through port for the heating accessories, P-valve ports. I mean, there's just, the zipper goes from both directions, so it just makes a lot of sense in my mind. A heated suit versus a heated vest and heated accessories. Now, personally, I think you should use heated undergarments as the nice, the comfort, the extra bit of, you know, pat yourself on the shoulder, you're a good guy, you can treat yourself, kind of thing. I think you shouldn't use thermal heated underwear as the primary source of insulation or heat or warmth, because it's electrical. If your battery fails, if your battery runs out, it's not in the beginning of the dive, it's in the end of the dive where you need it the most. And this is where we get into the thermal exposure, which relates to your decompression. Everyone knows by now, and there's been studies go online on YouTube and do a little search, but there's a very clear test have been done by the NIDU that shows, okay, if you go into the water warm and come out of the water cold, that's the worst scenario from a decompression point of view. And let's face it, that's usually what we do, right? We get into our suits and we get warm, and we jump in the water, and gradually during the dive we get cold, and at the end of the dive we make our decompression and we get even colder because we're hanging still on the line. Now, this is where I think heated undergarments for long exposure, decompression, deep dives is almost a must. I always think, okay, how much battery life do I have in my heated battery? And I wait, and then I turn it on towards the end of the dive. But it's more for comfort than it is for necessity. I think you should be able to be warm without the battery having to be turned on. And you know, do your exposure accordingly. Getting cold has a huge effect on your mental capacity. So if you're starting to get cold, you start losing focus, you start losing enjoyment, and it's just unsafe. So a lot of divers do the same with the glove arguments, like, okay, I don't want to wear this thick BZ400 because then I can't move, I can't reach my valves. Well, you can. I mean, I can. I'm no monkey. I can do it. You can do it. And if you take that mindset with you, you can train yourself. I mean, can't never could, right? So it's all about the fit of the dry suit, the fit of the undersuit, and the combination, and obviously skills. I've done a whole video on how to reach your valves on double, so if you struggle with that, go have a look at that. I'll post a link down in the description. But if you have a dry suit that fits you properly, and it has to fit you with all the undergarments that you want to choose. So if you have a summer suit which is more tight, or like a cave suit for Mexico where it's nice and tight, where you maybe only need a thin fleece like this as thermal protection, that's perfect. But if you dive a lot in cold waters, your suit needs to accommodate for the extra bulk of this undersuit. There's no shortcut. You cannot just put more air in your suit, and I'll come to that in a minute. You need to have an insulating layer, and there's no short way around it. Now, when we look about the movement of your suit underwater and the air in your suit, you have to think about, and it preludes a little bit to that video about reaching your valves. When you start putting on your equipment, you take on your suit and it starts, sagging down a little bit. Most of these suits come with, let me see if I can dig one out, with these seals, suspenders. So make sure they're nice and tight, so it keeps your suit up. And then when you put on your dry suit on top of it, before you put on the top part of your dry suit, reach down into your dry suit and just pull up your legs, and that way your suit is as high as it can be in your undersuit, in your dry suit. And then you put on the top, you zip it up, and you go into the water. When you then get into the water, you can feel the suit kind of squeezing around you. Now, stretch out underwater as far as you can. You can actually feel that suit getting a bit tight. And then you give a puff of air in your dry suit. That sends a wave of air in your dry suit and kind of loosens everything up. Do that for both legs, or sorry, both arms, and it'll actually help you out immensely with the maneuverability of your arms in your dry suit. Now, when I do these long dives, I have a wicking base layer, then I wear my heated vest, and then I wear my BZ400, and that's a lot of layers. And a lot of people think, oh, can you move? Yes, I can move. It's partly because of the way these are designed, but also I've been very careful in choosing the sizes. So when you choose the sizes of your undergarment, regardless of what it is, don't think about, hey, this fits me well like this, and I look in the mirror, oh, I look sharp, like this is nice. No, put yourself in a position you would be when you're diving. Go flat on the floor, lay on your stomach, put your feet up, put your arms in front, and now you can feel, is the suit nice? Does it, is it tight anywhere? Stretch out all the way in the top. If you cannot do this comfortably without giving yourself a wedgie, the suit's too small. Go a size bigger, and the same thing goes for your dry suit. So don't be tempted to buy this undergarment because it makes you look all buff, because it's going to hinder you in your movement underwater. So make sure you seek some advice and get the right size. Okay, now let me explain with this little bit of crude drawing that it's not just the air in your dry suit that insulates you. It's very important to have a bit of a layer that traps the air, because from an insulating point of view, it is still air, standing air, that insulates you. If the air gets allows to move around, it doesn't isolate you. Think about it. When you're outside in the wintertime, it's not enough to have a big fitting raincoat on you underneath on top of a t-shirt. Even though there's a lot of air between you and your t-shirt and the raincoat that's way too big, it's still too cold. You need something fluffy underneath, right? So when you look at this diver I've drawn, the black indicates your skin, the purple is the outside of your undergarments, and then this green area with the lines in is the excess area of air that you hear sometimes people put in their suits at wintertime to keep them more warm, or at least they think they're keeping them more warm. Whereas if you need this amount of extra air in your suit, you need something to fill that gap in. Now, obviously this is a little bit exaggerated, but it illustrates the point. When you look at a cross-section of this part, that's what I've drawn here, you have your skin, and your skin radiates a lot of heat, indicated by these orange arrows. Then that heat, that warm air, gets trapped inside your undergarment, illustrated by this purple layer with the warm air now trapped inside. If there is too big of an air gap above your undergarment inside your dry suit, and the dry suit is this green layer here, that's the top of your shell dry suit, and then the blue indicates the cold water. The dry suit itself doesn't offer any insulation. So what happens is the warm air goes through your undergarments and heats up your undergarments, and that's nice. But now the undergarments radiate into this air void here, where the warm air rises up, gets into contact with this cold non-insulated layer on the inside of your dry suit, gets cooled down, and cold air falls down. Cold air is heavier. It'll fall down and replace the warm air, and now you get what's called convection, and this is actually how a refrigerator works. So adding more air on top of something that's nice and warm and insulated actually doesn't help you. It can actually contribute to getting yourself colder and colder. Now, at the same time, it shouldn't be so tight that it compresses this layer, because if you compress this layer so that the air trapped inside is not enough, if you can imagine what I mean here, then that's also not good. So you have to find the right amount of dry suit insulating undergarments, and then the dry suit that fits. So ideally, the layer of your dry suit stops around about here. So you have the maximum amount of expansion of the undergarment, and therefore the maximum amount of insulation. And this is why when I told you the Senti undergarments are manufactured in such a way that you have bulk where you need it, but it doesn't hinder you, because where it's compressed, like your armpits or your knees, on the inside of your knees, it's actually less materials, whereas on the top of your knees, where you bend and when you compress the materials, there is more material. So it's quite clever the way they made that. So I hope this illustration, even though it's a bit drawn by an amateur, I hope it gives you a good idea of what I mean by that. All right. How to care for your undergarments. Now, most undergarments can be washed normally. Use a sports washing detergent that's really good at getting the sweat away, especially from the wicking layer, and do wash them every so often, please, because some of these undersuits, they get a bit yuck. You always sweat a little bit. There's no way around it, because your dry suit is completely closed, and there's some of these breathable dry suits, but as soon as you go into the water, that breathability goes away, because the water is not breathable. It just stops there. So you're gonna get some condensation on the inside of your suit. It makes your suit a little bit wet, and combined with some sweat and some BO, they get nasty. So wash them. You normally wash them. Just follow your manufacturer's description on how to wash them. I use one of these, the same laundry detergent I use for my cycling gear. It gets away from the sweat and it smells nice. So do that. The only thing I don't wash that often, even though they say you can, is my heated vest. So it's always underneath the big wicking layer, and I think I've washed it once just by hand. Make a little tub and just wash it, and I keep the stick out, even though they say it's waterproof. That there's no need to wash this, so I keep it out of the bucket, wash everything by hand, leave it out to dry, and off you go. And if you noticed, this is one of the earliest heated vests I've got. I mean, this is, I think, the first model they came out with. It's only been back to the factory to get a new stick fitted, but that's it, and it's still working. So take care of your stuff and it'll take care of you. So that's what I had to say about undergarments and keeping warm. So don't go into compromise and going for the thinner suit to keep you with dexterity, because you're going to just be freezing, you're going to be miserable, and you're going to just have a bad dive. Train yourself away from the restrictions. Seek out one of our UTD instructors if you want some help with reaching your valve or picking out some undergarments. I'm sure they'll be more than happy to help you out there. Otherwise, stay diving, stay sharp, and see you out there.